welcome to CXO Spice Talk. In today's episode, we come face to face with the Mayflower autonomous ship. Has AI's ship come in? Yes, with no crew on board and lots of technology innovation navigating the path ahead. I am delighted to host two special guests today. Brett Funieff, the founder of Premier, and Don Scott, the CTO at Marine AI. So before we dive into our discussion, could you tell us the backstory of this now world-famous ship? Brett, let's start with you.
Sure, and thank you for having us, Helen. The backstory is pretty I guess I would describe it as a hold my beer kind of thing. Don and I have been working together for almost 3 decades now and building all sorts of exotic marine equipment and manned and unmanned underwater systems. And we kind of talked about all sorts of automation and autonomy throughout our careers and have watched the technology improve. And I was kind of contemplating all of that. And at the same time, I live in Plymouth, UK, but I grew up not far from Plymouth, Massachusetts. So it sort of bookends. And in a previous career before doing marine engineering, I worked as an archaeologist, so I have a deep interest in history as well. And so sort of all these things came together, and I happened to be at a meeting with the city of Plymouth in the UK, talking about something else that I can't remember at all. And they were just sort of in the margins discussing, what are we going to do to celebrate the 400th anniversary of the crossing of the original Mayflower? And, as a child, I'd gone to Plymouth Rock, I'd been on the deck of the Mayflower 2, which was a replica built in the 1950s. And, so all this is sort of in my head and all this stuff about robotics and autonomy. And somebody at the meeting said, well, we should build another Mayflower and sail it across. And I said, no, hang on. We did that in 1957, right? I've seen it. I've been on the ship. In fact, they just refit it. And so that would be kind of silly. And why would we do something that looked backwards, where we can celebrate aspects of the crossing of the Mayflower, that significant historical event. But at the same time, we can maybe take a different perspective, which is how do we look to the future, right? What is the next 400 years going to look like for the marine enterprise, which I think is much more interesting than looking back at the last 400, to be honest with you. And so I said, why don't we build an autonomous ship? Nobody's doing that. Let's do that. And there wasn't a considerable amount of enthusiasm in the room for it because it seemed impossible, I think. And I wasn't sure. And even talking to Dawn after the fact, we weren't really sure we could make something that was truly autonomous, right? We knew we had to go down this AI route, but we hadn't really done it in the past. And so it was a lot of challenges, and we just kind of decided to do it. And I called Dawn after the meeting and I said, Dawn, we're going to build an autonomous ship. You need to make me a Captain Watson. Because for me, AI was, watching, Watson play chess and watching Watson on Jeopardy, right? That's kind of in my popular imagination. I thought that's what we needed a Captain Watson. And then Dawn had to think about how to build it from there. But that's how it started. It was just sort of a hold my beer. It's like, oh no, we're not going to build a replica ship. We're going to build a fully autonomous ship. No problem.
I still have I'm staring at the sticky note right now from that conversation, which is build Captain Watson for Mayflower.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that was the origins of this whole thing. So
that'll be in the Smithsonian one day, Don.
There we go.
It's fascinating, right? How everything started simple, and with a simple, and then with a few visionaries, right? People like you. So I'm very honored to have.
Well, maybe naive visionaries would be it. Naive visionaries. Right.
So it looks like AI's ship, right, is really coming to port during the upcoming Consumer Electronics Show, January 5th to 8th. And there's a lot of buzz about this Mayflower autonomous ship, a completely unmanned maritime climate research vessel, otherwise known as MAS 400. Give us a sneak peek into this modern day wonder and IBM's role in the AI technology, hybrid cloud strategy, and edge computing powering the Mayflower autonomous ship. Maybe let's have Don have you share that a little bit.
Yeah, so basically when Brett and I started on this project, we were looking for a technology vendor and looking for someone to sort of help us along this journey. And we were approached by IBM, really on the computer vision side of things. And they became, in the ensuing year or so, became really important integral partners in this venture. Like their technology is all over the boat now. I mean, it's we use it for everything from the computer vision systems, the training models, to the decision-making engine, essentially for the AI captain. So it's what we're doing. It started off as, I'd say, maybe a fairly simple idea, but what we're doing is actually quite difficult and quite hard to do. And we're certainly not doing it by ourselves, just alone. We're sort of have a lot of technology partners, a lot of people helping, IBM at the forefront of that group for sure.
Yeah, I think the most important thing about IBM's involvement is their enthusiasm, and the number of people involved at IBM over many years is measured in the hundreds, if not more. And it's a real testament to the company that they let people have the kind of latitude that they have in their work life to be able to engage with these sorts of projects. And for a while we kept wondering when the other shoe was going to drop, when it was going to get difficult, or when it was going to be impossible to work with them, and it just keeps getting better. And so it's really refreshing to meet a company that really prizes research. But I think the most important part about all this is that what they've created is a technology platform, and what they sincerely want is for people to deploy it and to write our code, our software, our application on that platform. We own the intellectual property. They don't, but they enable us to create that property and then be consumers of the sort of, it's almost like building a house, right? We buy the bricks and the lumber from them, but we're architects of the ultimate design, or the ultimate completion of the house. And it shouldn't be lost on people that the ability to do that, to provide that to us, is built on 7-8 decades of fundamental research, like in artificial intelligence and machine learning. And only the confluence of really powerful microelectronics can any of these things be deployed in a meaningful way. And when we started, even in 2016, Don can probably tell you, we weren't even sure we put enough compute power in the vessel that was the size we could afford to build to actually do the things we needed to do. It's now you can pick it up, and just in the intervening few years, you can pick up the entire computer system and walk away with it.
Well, that's a testament of IBM's commitment, right?
Yeah, they were it's incredible that they haven't lost their roots, right? Like they're a true engineering company, right? And they've created this very collaborative environment to do this type of work, and made the resources available and like very enthusiastically, we're constantly surprised by the level of effort and the enthusiasm and that they bring to this project. So,
and it's interesting though, because I think what they do get something out of it, other than working with a couple of clowns like us. I think what Mayflower gives them back is an opportunity to talk to people about in a really simple, sort of integrated, holistic way that's non-threatening, right? So I often tell people that the best part of the unmanned vessel project is the people that you get to work with, right? So the irony is that's the part about it, is we're building something that doesn't require people, but the people that build it are fascinating to work with. And it's nice. It's sort of this nice ship that looks kind of neat, like a spaceship, and it's got a name, and humans are funny. We anthropomorphize things. We name our cars, we name our boats, right? So, and it deploys sort of all of the AI sort of tech, machine learning tech that IBM has to offer. And so it lets them talk to people, and people have a natural affinity for. Most people like boats, and it's kind of nice, and it's got a lovely mission, which is ocean science and climate science. So for them, this unmanned vessel is, I guess I heard one of the IBM guys say it's humanized, weirdly, AI in a way that they hadn't been able to do before when trying to talk to the general public. So that's helping a lot too. See, all you hear about AI mostly is, I was just watching some things before this, was doom and gloom doom stuff about how it's going to kill jobs and how AI, if we make a smart paperclip manufacturer, it's going to consume the world making paperclips. All this kind of nonsense, right? This doom, fear-mongering stuff, and it's just so far from the truth. And when I think about AI, what really worries me is not artificial intelligence. I saw a cartoon the other day where one person asked the other, "Are you worried about the rise of artificial intelligence?" And the respondent said, "No, I'm actually worried about the decline in real intelligence."
Yeah.
And go to a store and try to get somebody to make change for you without using a computer.
Brett, that was one of my Twitter posts, as a matter of fact. I'm glad you brought it up.
Oh, okay, maybe it was yours. Yeah.
So
yeah, I worry about, everybody's like, well, what are people going to do when AI does all these things for them? Yeah. And I'm thinking that's already happened, right? Go to any store. Yeah. People have given away their agency go to a drive-through, order something and give them change. So like, you don't want all the pennies back, you want a quarter. Mm-hmm. Give them the change so that and their brain you can see they have to punch it in. They look at you, they look at it, they don't know what to do. And I'm thinking people have given away their agency to dumb machines. Forget about AI, right? That ship has sailed. So worrying about it, I think it's silly to worry about it, right? So we have to find a way to.
So Brett, what you're saying is we need to make an AI-based change calculation machine.
No,
they did that a long time ago. It's called a calculator.
No, but that's not. Well, okay, it depends on where you define AI.
Okay,
but
the modern Mayflower ship itself is such a metaphor, right, for how far technology has come. You think about it. Let's go back in time for a moment now, right? The Mayflower autonomous ship commemorates the 400th anniversary of the 1620 transatlantic voyage of the original Mayflower from Plymouth Sound in England to the New World. How much of a technological feat was it to successfully cross the Atlantic back in 1620?
Well, that's an interesting.
This is for Brett.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, right? Because so one of the things that's interesting about ships and why people are interested in specs is through most of history, ancient all the way up to modern history. Ships represented the pinnacle of all technologies available in a society. So material science and manufacturing, engineering, design, mathematics, everything was sort of brought to bear because it moved people and it moved goods, right? Economics, everything really is encompassed in a ship. So when you study a shipwreck, it's like a photograph taken in time, like that froze at that moment and tells you things. It's sort of an unmolested thing. Yes, it degrades, but unlike terrestrial archaeological sites that get built on and damaged and looted, get looted too, but in the deep sea, they're like little photographs. You can actually look back in time at the peak of technology. Now, time the Mayflower sailed, she was kind of a pretty worn out old leaky ship and she had some real issues. In fact, they had to turn back twice because of that. But that was, you're talking about sort of, I guess it's sort of post-Renaissance coming into the modern age, a century before the Industrial Revolution, or a century and a half anyway. And we didn't even really quite understand longitude, right? We were still struggling to make timepieces that were accurate enough aboard a ship that you could determine where you were in terms of longitude on the Earth. We understood latitude, but we couldn't do longitude. All that was kind of evolving right then. So, I mean, the ability to do that was a massive technological feat, but I think it's important to note that everybody that got on that ship was other than the children probably, was completely cognizant that they were more likely to die than to live, because they understood the limits, and death at sea was common. It isn't anymore. It's incredibly safe. And so mortality was a real concern for these people, but for some reason they did it anyway. Whatever it was they were seeking was worth that level of risk. So that risk-taking inspires me more than anything about the story. But technologically, ships have always been at the pinnacle. And so now they are, right? But it's sort of overtaken by aircraft and space technology in many ways. And now ships are sort of catching up. And part of the reason that they've sort of been overtaken is partly due to investment in other technologies, but also because ships tend to have very long lives. So capital ships, big warships, commercial vessels it's not uncommon that they're 50 years old, that they have planned 30, 40, 50-year lifespans. So most other things in your day-to-day existence don't. Can you think of anything in your house right now that's been around for 50 years other than a known antique, right?
Mhm.
I think about the shift in technology in the last 2 years.
2 years.
In the last 30 years,
yeah.
right?
Right. So the rate of technological insertion is sort of mitigated in that way. But now we're seeing sort of this burgeoning of all sorts of really fantastic things that are enabled by computer science, basically. New materials, new engineering, new structures, new propulsion, satellites in space that are helping us navigate that. And that's been around for 25, 30 years in a more profound way in terms of weather routing and fuel savings and all sorts of interesting things. So ships are now kind of, again, emerging into the technological forefront on par with things like spacecraft. And I guess you could say some submarines in a way, nuclear submarines probably are like underwater spaceships. They've probably been at the pinnacle. But again, 30, 40-year obsolescence plans. And so it's hard to do real rapid technological refresh. But we're starting to see it now a little bit more quickly. And there's a common misconception that work at sea is dangerous. You're more likely to die driving to the dock than you are on your cruise by a long way. But in the popular mind, that's just not the case. People still, I think, have sort of an atavistic view of this. They think about, World War II film, right? Because most people don't go to sea, right? So they think about like Das Boot, or they think about the Titanic, right? That's their, and they don't quite really grasp how safe it truly is now. And so the idea of deploying AI, this really cutting edge technology, isn't about removing people per se. It's not about increasing safety. It is in a way. What it's really about for us is driving down the cost and increasing the availability to send things to sea for very long periods of time, like satellites, gather vast amounts of data that can be processed on the edge. And information can be brought back that then is actionable in a more immediate way. And it's democratizing, right? You can do this globally so that we learn faster about what's really what the mechanics are of our planet, our climate, our ocean. That's the thing that's really exciting that AI enables. Then you use it to augment what people can do at sea. Right?
That's profound, right, Brett? And is that why the Mayflower autonomous ship project is so important to IBM? Because you mentioned earlier about IBM's, what exactly the product they have are on this ship.
Oh, everything they've got from their what's the vision system name? They keep changing it.
It's called Maximal Visual Insights now.
Maximal Visual Insights. We've got Edge Management. What is their
Edge Application Manager, which when we started with them, I think it was called Blue Horizon or something.
Yeah. And then we've got
but those are Operational Decision Manager, which is the key automation thing. Yeah.
Yep. CPlex Optimizer, Red Hat Linux.
The Weather Company.
Weather Company provides weather data. That's IBM. Acoustic Insights, right? We're using their insights to do the whale song stuff, to make models for acoustics and for rotating machinery, sort of.
And a lot of the IBM research is providing a lot of the scientific experiments in the payload, in the scientific payload section.
They've made actual instruments, right? They made the HyperTaste, which was an instrument made in Switzerland by IBM, initially to detect forgeries in the brandy and wine markets, right? Because that's forged a lot. So they created this sort of digital tongue to sort of figure out, is this a real, wine, brandy, or is it a fake? And somebody saw the IBM and saw Mayflower, and they said, oh, geez, I wonder if we could make it, do chemical analysis of seawater. And so they just made another one and sent us to it, and that's on the ship. And so all these cutting edge things are there.
That's amazing, right? Tell us more about the AI captain. How did you team him to navigate around the ships and handle what most of us think of as human-driven decisions?
The analogy is, we always get compared to self-driving cars, right? But it's a very different environment. We don't have traffic signs and lanes and stop signs and all that sort of stuff. But what we're traveling on is very dynamic. It's moving a lot, right? And there's a lot of other influences. Like you don't have a current pushing a car, into a rock face, things like that, which is what you might have at sea. So, to sort of overcome that, like you said, the AI captain, it's a virtualized captain, right? So the role of a captain is the safe and efficient operation of a vessel at sea. And so that's what we're trying to implement.
Right.
And it's essentially, so our solution is a hybrid AI type solution. We realize AI is a term that gets thrown out a lot, right? And exactly what is it? So one of the key elements we have is not pure AI per se, right? It's a deterministic rule set to decide on how to do things. And that's sort of one of the key things. And that's the key part of the decision-making process. As in, how do I navigate this situation? And just so, like Brett alluded to, when you're driving a car, there's rules you follow. There's rules at sea too, right? Like there are rules called collision regulations, or COL regs for short, which dictate how two ships interact with each other when they approach each other. And so, we've gone through great pains to make sure that AI captain follows those rules, and also is able to sort of make dynamic decisions based on ever evolving situations with other ships, things like that. So
that's fascinating, right? Let's switch gear to CES. CES is a who's who of future tech innovation. What exactly can we expect to see from IBM at CES? And for all those who can't make it, how can they get to experience the Mayflower autonomous ship?
Look at mas400.com and
yeah.
tell you what the ship's doing and where it's going, and when we're at sea, it's reporting live, updating what's happening, and we live stream the cameras from anywhere in the world off the ship as well, so you can see what's actually happening. Yeah, but that's the best place to see it. But what's happening with IBM, just gosh, there's so much. I mean, they're talking about, I think their big thrust here is they're looking at, they're using what we did as a way to show people how you can develop your own sort of contextual narrow AI system to do something really challenging, right? So if you're delivering pizzas on with a curbside robot, well, here's a collection of tools that's doing something probably more challenging, right? We're going to build any sort of a thing that you think about in terms of game changing. IBM's got a tool for you, and that's the actual truth. And the nice thing is it's so integrated and so broad and so available globally that, they kind of get short shrifted, I think, sometimes, right, compared to some of the flashy companies.
Yeah. Like, but the example I always use is how we ended up using ODM, which is their operational decision manager for the COL regs issue. And it was going down this one path, like reinforcement learning, stuff like that. And it was one of those serendipitous things, right? Like one of their engineers knew a guy that was doing something with Mayflower and said, hey, maybe they could use our tool. So they gave us this presentation. I remember it really, like Brett and I were sitting in his office, and he was giving a presentation about this tool that was used for financial services industry, right, to decide credit card fraud, right? And I remember we turned, we hit mute and we looked at each other and we're like, what the hell does this have to do with collision regulations and autonomous ships? And then we sort of, the penny dropped and realized that they were making very complex decisions, in a very regulated environment, which is exactly what we needed. And it actually became the perfect tool for solving our problem. And that's something they brought to us. It's like this great example of lateral thinking. Like, I've got this technology, I've got this capability, and it can be applied in this very narrow area, marine autonomy.
And that's been kind of funny because that tool, operational decision manager, usually makes billions and billions of decisions a day, right? I mean, millions, just insane number of decisions a day globally. Sort of underpins a vast part of the global financial network, and people don't even know it exists. It's sort of an outgrowth of expert systems. It's been around forever. We needed to decisions a day.
Yeah,
Right.
so this is a challenge for IBM though, right? Because I mean, this is like we're using this this tool in a very different way. And like Brett said, we're not making a million decisions a minute, right? We're making one or two, right? And we're also deploying it on the edge. It's not a server-based type system.
It's not a cloud-based system.
It's not a cloud-based system. Like Mayflower isn't communicating up, and going through this big process. All the decision making has to happen on the ship itself. So it's a new deployment model. It's a new decision making model. So IBM is needing to sort of rejig, the way they do things too, which is
and it's fascinating with them because they can't figure, one of the things that's been interesting to try and figure out is the cost models for these tools, right? Yeah. So when a billion decisions a day, a thousandth of a penny matters, right? And they make money in that way. Well, we make, I'll pay them a penny a decision. I'll pay them 1,000 times what they usually charge a decision, but that's not helpful for them. It costs them more money to take my pennies, right? Literally than I could ever pay. So then they have to think about, well, okay, how do we scale this down and provide value, but also still be functional as a company? Like, can we sell this tool in this new way to other people to help them make these decisions?
All right, let me direct the last two questions to Don. So we're hearing all about driverless cars and hands-free driving, but captainless ships. What industries will be most affected by this type of technology on the Mayflower autonomous ship?
I think the changes are actually going to be quite profound, and not just in the marine environment itself. I mean, the type of technology that we're working on can have broad applications into lots of different industries. I mean, there's always, we talk about this concept of path dependency or decision path dependency, where you make you go along a certain path because of previous decisions. So the type of technology that we're developing with the Mayflower autonomous ship, it changes all of that, right? It creates the opportunity for us to rethink how we're going to be doing things and how we're going to be implementing capabilities and strategies. Because it changes a lot of the ways that we actually make those decisions. So, bringing it back specifically to the marine environment, the type of technology that we're working on is really, we talk about it not so much as artificial intelligence as augmented intelligence, where we're allowing these technologies and capabilities to enhance the ability of the humans in their industries to make decisions and sort of enhancing their ability to do what they're innately able to do as humans, which is pulling in all this complex information and making informed decisions. So it's going to, who knows what's going to happen in the next few years, just that the ramifications of this type of technology. I mean, I couldn't imagine a few years ago even being able to do what we're doing now. So who knows what we're going to be able to be doing in a few more years. So.
Yeah, that's a salient point, right? It's actually the peopless ships is actually bringing the people together even closer to each other. So fascinating. When it comes to innovation, though, it takes a village to bring great ideas forward, right? Could you share a little bit about the ecosystem that helped the Mayflower come to life?
Yeah, I guess we can. I can sort of answer this on two levels. One is the sort of the broader context of how we operate as a company, and then also bring it down to the Mayflower itself. So as a company with Brett, we think of innovation as a two-step process. You have creativity, and then you have the realization of that creativity into you're actually doing something. Like you can have a great idea, but if you don't do something about it, if you don't implement it, then so what, right? And so our company, we've worked very hard at creating an environment that sort of nurtures that type of creativity, but then also has all the engineering and science and physics building blocks to implement those ideas itself. I mean, I talk about it constantly. I'm really against this concept of, I call it PowerPoint engineering, where you just sort of you just sort of do it on PowerPoint. You don't actually have to build anything. We sort of take great pride in actually building things, like building autonomous ships, building submarines, building drones and things like that, because we find we learn more, we push technology further in the act of doing, in the act of actually putting a vessel on the water and seeing how it behaves, and really pushing the capability further. In the smaller context of the Mayflower autonomous ship, I can't sort of talk about the ecosystem without sort of talking about sort of this groundswell of community involvement that we've had. With the Mayflower has been a real catalyst for change in autonomous ships and autonomous capabilities, and we've had a lot of interest from a lot of the maritime industries, everything from the regulatory boards and the insurance companies right down to sensor providers, weather stations, things like that, navigation systems, and then also just the academic community as well. Because one of the main goals of Mayflower was to provide a platform for ocean research, and so part of this ecosystem that's brought Mayflower to life has been the involvement of the academic community, to help get the message out to the broader population, the general public, about ocean research and studying the oceans and appreciating this incredible resource that we have, the world's oceans.
That's fascinating, right? Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us on the Mayflower autonomous ship today. I'm actually pleased to see IBM's commitment to invigorating approaches to science and innovation to meet our biggest challenges. This is such a unique opportunity, right, to apply our most advanced technologies and research expertise to help transform humans' relationship with the ocean. And, if you think about IBM is a company with a history of taking on grand challenges, from help to put man on the moon to building an AI capable of debating with human on key issues. The Mayflower autonomous ship really has no human captain or crew on board. It is piloted by an AI captain powered by IBM's automation, AI, and edge computing technologies, which are used across so many industries. So I hope you all enjoy CES, the upcoming CES, and tune in for the upcoming episode on the implication of a ship without a crew. And stay hungry, stay bold, and stay grateful.